They said I was family, until I made them too much money. My name's Ryan Carter. I'm 38 years old, and until about 4 months ago, I thought I understood loyalty. I wasn't born with much, raised by a single mom who worked double shifts as a nurse. I learned early that nobody handed you anything. You had to earn it. I scraped my way through college on scholarships and night shifts, and when I landed an unpaid internship at Redmond Analytics, I treated it like a golden ticket. I showed up early, stayed late, asked questions most people ignored. I didn't just want to work there, I wanted to matter there, and I did, slowly at first. Then faster than anyone expected. In 10 years, I went from intern to vice president of strategy. I was the guy who found the holes in our revenue pipeline, quiet leaks that had bled us dry for years. I rebuilt our systems from the inside out, connected the dots that everyone else missed. When I presented the new model to the executive board, I remember the stunned silence, then applause, then a standing ovation from our founder, Michael. We were pulling in $4 million in annual revenue when I started. Last year, we closed out at 12. I didn't just help them grow, I tripled their numbers, cut costs, expanded our client base by 70%, built a team that loved working under me. It was the proudest I'd ever been. They gave me a bonus that year, more than my entire salary when I first started. There were whispers of grooming me for COO. Michael even said it, one night over drinks at his house, with his hand on my shoulder. "You've got a future here, Ryan. Your family." They were at my wedding. They sent flowers when my dad died. I spent more time with them than with my wife. But in the end, none of that mattered. Because the moment I made them too much money, I became a liability. It started with the new president, Daniel, at Knox, handsome, slick, Ivy League polish with none of the warmth. I remember the first time I met him. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced, but his eyes were cold. Like something mechanical behind the charm. Michael had stepped down, said he was ready to spend more time with family. But the way he said it felt like someone had decided that for him. Daniel was polite enough at first, but his comments carried an edge. We're shaking things up. Legacy culture doesn't scale. He'd nod as I spoke in meetings, but he never really looked at me. I was one of the old guard now, too embedded, too trusted. I saw it in his eyes. He didn't. Like legacy hires. I was the legacy. Still, I buried it. I told myself I was being paranoid. That loyalty meant something. Then they pulled the rug. A high-stakes project I'd been spearheading for 6 months, real-time client integration for Fortune 100 partners, got reassigned. No explanation, just a quiet email late at night. Reallocation of responsibilities. Then came the missed invites. Strategy huddles without me, calendar holds that disappeared. I'd walk past a conference room and hear my name, followed by silence. My team stopped asking questions. One of them, a junior analyst I'd mentored from her first week, started avoiding eye contact, and still, I stayed quiet. I believed somehow that my work would speak for me, that numbers didn't lie, that trust, once earned, couldn't be erased overnight. I didn't see it coming fast enough. The morning it happened, the office felt still, not quiet, still, like something had paused just beneath the surface. I'd barely stepped in when I got the calendar invite. 10 a.m. Conference room B, no subject, just a location, and 3 names, Daniel, HR director, me. I knew. My heart didn't race, it didn't break, it sank. Slowly, like it had been expecting this moment and was finally ready to meet it. I walked in. Daniel was already seated, one leg crossed over the other, hands folded. "Ryan," he said, standing just enough to pretend civility. "Thanks for coming." The HR director didn't smile. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her tablet. Daniel started talking, something about strategic realignment, appreciating my contributions, the ever-changing landscape of corporate needs. Buzzwords, bullet points. Then came the line, As of today, your role has been eliminated. We thank you for your service. No cause, no warning, just a clean cut. He slid a white envelope across the table. Severance. I stared at it, then at him, and he smiled. That's what gutted me, not the words, not even the betrayal, the smile. That subtle, practiced thing that said you didn't see it coming, but I did. And now you're gone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked back to my office, packed my things, family photos, a worn coffee mug my team gave me after we landed the 2-medalist contract, a framed note from Michael to the man who saved our future. I boxed it all with careful hands. As I closed the lid, my eyes settled on a folder tucked deep in the bottom. Drawer, the one no one knew I kept. Audit reports, internal memos, a paper trail that told a different story than the one Daniel was writing. I picked it up, just held it for a moment. Then I whispered to myself, almost like a confession. There's no way they know what I know. Not yet. The box felt heavier as I walked out of the building, not because of the things inside, just a few photos, my coffee mug, that framed thank you note, but because of what it represented. 10 years condensed into a cardboard box with bent corners. And tape that wouldn't stick. No one met my eyes. Not Marcy at reception, not Joel, who used to beg to sit in on my client calls. Not even Jared, the guy who once called me a brother after I stayed with him all night when his mom passed. I passed familiar offices and saw blinds quickly drawn. Doors that had always been open, now quietly shut. 10 years in that building. I knew every creaky floorboard, every broken vending machine, and yet when I left, it was like I never existed. I drove home in silence. Didn't turn on the radio. Didn't call anyone. When I walked through the door, my wife was waiting. Her face went pale before I even said a word. They let me go, I said quietly. She didn't say anything at first, just pulled me into her arms, held me like I was something fragile, like she could feel the hollow space inside me. That night, we sat at the kitchen table going over our finances, mortgage, car, insurance, health coverage gone by month's end. She kept saying, "We'll figure it out." But I saw the way she looked at the bills. At me, I wasn't just unemployed, I was unmoored. A ship cut loose from the dock, drifting in waters I didn't recognize. A few days passed. Friends reached out. A couple of them, mostly outside the company, offered condolences, drinks, vague ideas of help. My old co-worker Travis called. "Man, I heard what happened. It's brutal." I kept my voice calm. They said it was restructuring. "Yeah, right. Look, I'm just gonna say it. Don't let it eat you. It's just business. Move on. Just business." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You don't give a man your blood and tell him to walk away clean." I stopped sleeping. 3, 4 in the morning, I'd be sitting on the couch, staring at nothing, replaying everything, every meeting, every decision, every smile that had meant something. Else I couldn't stop thinking about the moment Daniel smiled as he fired me, like he was erasing me with a signature. Something didn't sit right. 3 days after the firing, I found my old work laptop in the back of my closet. They'd wiped my credentials at the office, of course, but the laptop, I'd used it remotely. During the pandemic, I'd kept it synced to my home network by habit. Maybe by instinct, I powered it on. The login screen flashed up. No reset, and there it was. My old work email, still logged in. Most of it was locked down, restricted, but not everything. I started scrolling, emails, meeting notes, archives. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, until I found it. Calendar invite dated 2 weeks before I was fired. Meeting title, Strategic Budget Consolidation. Executive Session Attendees, Daniel Knox, CFO, HR Director, hidden from my view. I opened the attachment line items, budget shifts. A reallocation of over $2.3 million from an operational discretionary fund, which didn't exist 6 months ago, to a shell consultancy firm I didn't recognize. I froze. Then I opened my downloads folder. There it was, a backup copy of The last quarterly audit I'd reviewed before everything went dark, and that's when I saw it. Entries that had been deleted from the company system were still in my version. I wasn't paranoid. They were sloppy. The more I dug, the clearer it became. My division, the one they praised, the one I built, was the only profitable sector in the entire company. Everything else was bleeding money. But on paper, thanks to my projections, Redmont looked like it was soaring because I had propped it up, but somewhere along the way Daniel and his inner circle had started moving things. Funneling revenue, hiding losses, using shell accounts to shift funds offshore under consultancy fees. They needed my numbers to sell a lie to investors, but they didn't want me asking questions. I wasn't a threat until I started looking. Too close. Until I started asking why certain vendors weren't responding, why budget meetings were being cancelled, why executive sign-offs were missing. I wasn't just a legacy hire, I was a witness, and now I was dangerous. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I got to work. I printed the audit trail, every page, flagged every inconsistency, highlighted every deleted line. Then I made copies. One went into a secure drive I handed to my friend Mark, an old college buddy who worked in compliance at a Fortune 100. I didn't say much. Just hold this for me, and if anything happens, look inside. He nodded. Didn't ask questions. I sat alone that night in my office, staring at the numbers, at everything I had built, used now to cover someone else's greed. My hands were steady, my eyes were cold. They took everything, but they forgot what I built, and they fired the wrong man. I'm about to remind them what loyalty really costs. They thought I'd vanish. They thought I'd take my box, my severance, my bruised ego, and fade into the background like so many before me. But the thing about burying a man alive, you'd better make damn sure he can't claw his way back up. Didn't scream. I didn't storm the gates. I sat in silence and I watched. First, I mapped the web. Who signed what? Who approved which transfers, emails, names, timestamps? I charted them like a battlefield commander marking targets. Daniel Knox, president, supposedly brought in to streamline operations. He wasn't the cleaner, he was the stain. Buried deep in the finance reports I had backed up were internal memos, hidden under misnamed files and duplicate entries. Someone had gone to great lengths to disguise it all. But not well enough, I found. A code used repeatedly on expense reports, EXRMNT 122, at first glance. Harmless. But when I ran it through our legacy vendor database, it linked to a dormant holding company, based in Delaware, of course. No employees, no website, just a shell. The kicker? That shell had the same mailing address as a firm where Daniel's wife once worked, and guess who was on the board of that? Firm now? His mother-in-law. This wasn't mismanagement. This wasn't carelessness. This was a heist with corner offices. So I made my first move. I crafted a single email. No threats, no flair, just a few lines. Anonymized source. Attached were 2 files, 1 budget report, and 1 deleted audit line, with a brief note. These numbers don't add up. Might be worth a look. I sent it to a journalist I'd once helped with a tech piece years back, Mira Lane. She owed me a favor, or at least a returned call. I didn't ask for exposure. I asked for scrutiny. Then I picked up the phone and called Derek, compliance officer at a rival firm, old college buddy. Cutthroat in a suit, I told him, something big's about to crack. Redmont's numbers aren't clean, and their president, he's knee-deep. Derek's silence said everything. I'll poke around, he finally said. Just be careful. I hung up and began leaking micro breadcrumbs. A few numbers here, a few missing vendors there. Nothing dramatic, but just enough to get forums buzzing. Just enough that the whispers would start inside the company. You want to erase me? Fine. Let me show you what happens when a ghost talks. Within a week, I saw the ripple. Redmont's LinkedIn page went from stale to explosive, job postings by the dozens, leadership roles, internal audit, PR crisis manager. I got a text from an old teammate, Sasha, one of the few who still had a conscience. "Did you send that email to the board?" "Shit's going crazy here." I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Daniel appeared on a podcast, one of those corporate vision shows, and his voice shook. Slightly, but I caught it. The smirk wasn't as sharp. The eyes darted more. The predator was feeling watched. It's funny, when you're building something honest, nobody looks, but when the walls crack, everyone hears. Then came the gala, annual Redmont fundraiser. Black ties and champagne and plastic smiles. I wasn't invited, but I came anyway. Suit pressed, shoes shining, calm, quiet, and completely unexpected. I stepped into that ballroom like I still belonged, because in some ways I did. Old co-workers froze when they saw me. A few whispered. One even spilled her drink. Daniel stood by the bar, surrounded by execs and investors. He saw me. Tried not to. I didn't approach him, didn't make a scene. I shook hands, smiled at old board members, and when I passed Kristen, the VP of Ops, I leaned in and whispered, "You might want to audit Q3. It's radioactive." She blinked, didn't ask questions. Before I left, I slipped a USB drive into the coat pocket of Redmont's legal counsel. No note, no explanation, just facts, pure, unfiltered truth. I didn't come for revenge. I came to return what they left in me, the truth. The next morning, Mira called. Her voice was electric. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop. We just found something. Bigger. Offshore accounts. More than just Redmont. This goes deep." I didn't ask for details. I already knew. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was bigger, wider, darker. I ended the call, turned to my laptop, and pulled up an old photo. My team. My department smiling, celebrating a launch. People who had trusted me, followed me, believed we were building something worth believing in. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I hit delete. They thought they buried me. But I was a seed. It started with a whisper, a blog post from an independent outlet, then a tweet thread, a comment under a financial news article. Then the dam broke. By morning, every major business network had it plastered across their headlines. Redmont Tech implodes amidst massive fraud scandal. The stock dropped 37% in a single day. By close of week, nearly 60%. Banks froze accounts. Auditors pulled out. People didn't just lose confidence, they evacuated like the building was on fire. I sat in a small, quiet cafe downtown, laptop open, spoon, in a half-eaten bowl of oatmeal, now cold, and watched it all burn. CNN rolled B-roll of Redmont's headquarters with a bold caption, "Executive laundering scandal exposes internal collapse." A quote from an anonymous source scrolled beneath. The president knew, everyone did, but he thought no one would ever say it out loud. I smiled. It was like watching a dam crack, then burst, except I knew exactly which stone to pull first. Then came the recordings. Funny thing about powerful men who think they've won. They forget who's still in the room and what's recording. Months ago, during one of those closed-door leadership briefings, I'd slipped my phone under a stack of folders, voice memos, app running, silent, hidden. What it picked up, everything. Daniel. Knox calling senior developers replaceable, laughing about the marketing team padding numbers for the board, telling his CFO that they could just reroute through the dummy firm again, no one looks past Q4, and the one that went viral, him mocking an engineer who worked late nights to save a product glitch. He still thinks hard work means something here. What a damn idiot. That clip alone got 2 million views in under 12 hours. He wasn't just corrupt, he was careless, and the world loves watching kings fall. I got a letter 2 days later, delivered by hand, rich linen envelope, heavy with irony, from the Redmont board. Formal apology. We deeply regret the actions taken against you. We'd like to discuss a private settlement and potential advisory role moving forward. I didn't laugh, not out loud. I placed the letter in a drawer and never answered. There's a difference between winning and healing. I wasn't after their money. I was after something cleaner, and I was already building it. 2 weeks later, I walked into a modest office space off 12th and Foster. Bare walls, one old coffee machine, but the people inside, solid, sharp, real. Jason from R&D, Elise from Ops, Devon, the quiet genius behind our core systems who they laid off without a thank you. We called it Northfield, named after the old town where my grandfather had once built his first mechanic shop by hand. Nothing flashy, just honest. We didn't talk about revenge, didn't even mention Redmond. We talked about building something real, transparent, grounded, human. They called it vengeance. I called it rebuilding, with the right people this time. 1 month later, I stood outside Redmond's building. It was raining lightly. Thin grey clouds stretched above me like old skin. The lobby lights were off. Police signs hung like ghosts in the windows. I walked to the front doors. Glass, once spotless, now streaked with rain and dust. Pressed my palm against it. This building had once felt larger than life. Now it was hollow, just walls and echoes. I stared inside, could almost see the younger version of myself, walking in 10 years ago, bright-eyed, dressed up for success, believing in merit, in leadership, in loyalty. That man didn't know how cold the world could be, didn't know how easy it was for people to smile as they gutted you from the inside out. But he learned, and he survived. You don't forget betrayal, but you can outgrow it. I pulled out my phone and called my wife. She answered on the first ring, no hesitation in her voice, just warmth. "Hey," she said, "how's it feel?" I looked back at the building, then up at the sky. "Quiet," I said. "The good kind." She was proud. I could hear it in her breath. The silence between us wasn't fear anymore. It was peace. I slipped my phone into my pocket, took one last look at the glass door, saw my reflection, older, calmer, but still burning, not with rage, with purpose. They built an empire of lies. I just brought the light.